Good evening, good morning, good night, whatever the case may be, it's me. It's me, your favorite world history teacher to ever live. It's Rusty Hughes. So sit back, relax, and listen to the sound of my soothing voice as I take you back to the Roman late Republic. And we're going to learn a little history about that late Roman Republic. So, where do we start? Well, growth of territory and trade is where we're going to start. Now, before Rome got all powerful, it had to expand, to say the least. Rome expanded for a couple of reasons due to threats from other cities. And when the Gauls, the French, took over Rome in roughly 410 BC, Roman officials paid them to leave. Hey, you know what? We don't want to fight. So here's some money. Here's some gold. If you will just leave, that would be great. There's only one problem with that. If you pay somebody to leave you alone, if you pay a group of people to go away, eventually, when they spend your money, they're going to come back because they want more money. And then they're going to tell their friends, hey, look, we didn't have to fight. The Romans kind of paid us to go away. So when that gets out there, you're going to have a heap of trouble because you're going to have everybody and anybody come to your land. Hey, we don't have to fight. Just give us some money and we'll leave. And because of this, Rome was constantly fighting off invaders. Everybody wanted a quick cha-ching paycheck. That's what they wanted. They didn't really want to fight. They didn't want Rome's land. They just wanted a quick paycheck. And they heard, hey, you paid the Gauls, pay us. So Rome's army was constantly fighting off invaders. So eventually, Rome's army had to change. They become very organized because they were always fighting. Their defense of the city was usually pretty successful because they were always fighting. They got really good at it. It was kind of a side effect. Everybody tried to come in for a quick paycheck. Rome got better at organization of their army, and they got better at boom, 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 boom. They got better at fighting. So they became kind of successful in a roundabout way, if you believe that. So it had a tricky side effect here. Sure, we'll pay the Gauls, they'll go away. They're going to come back, they want more money. They tell all their friends, their pals, they're coming in, they want money. So we had to learn how to fight. We had to get better. We organized our army and we got pretty darn good at it. It was kind of a side effect, though. So let's talk about Rome's army. Circle C. Soldiers in this organization part, they were divided up into something called legions or groups of up to 6,000. 6,000 men. Each legion was divided up into centuries. And, century is 100 years. Well, centuries in this case, groups of 100 soldiers. The army had this flexibility because of this to fight together or break up into smaller groups and kind of go in any direction. So think about this 6,000 men divided up into legions, centuries, I should say, hundreds of soldiers that can break apart from the main group. It allowed the army to be organized, disciplined, but also very flexible. Now, most of the Romans were originally farmers. Rome, Italy, if you would, kind of like Southern California, just this great climate, great soil, great for farming. Many of them moved to the city, though, and ran their farms from afar with the help of slaves and hands. As the population of the city grew, so did the need for more food. Even though Rome was producing a high amount of food, their population got so big they needed even more. An extensive trading network was established because of this. Even though Rome was good, they produced a lot of food because their populations, especially in the cities, were so high, they had to produce a trading network to bring in more food. Rome coined copper and silver money, which was used widely in the region to help kind of use this as trade. Now, Rome's growth made both allies and enemies all over the Mediterranean Sea area. You can see the picture below here. The Roman army fought many wars, including the Punic War, Circle B. And the Punic Wars was mainly against the North African city-state of Carthage. You can see Rome right below me, right here. It's the country shaped like a boot, Italy. And then you can kind of see Sicily, the island there. It kind of looks like the boots kicking a football. And then you have the green area known as Carthage. And again, Carthage was a state on the coast of North Africa, and it was a very powerful enemy of Rome. So at this time period, you had two very powerful city states. You had the mighty Romans, and you had the mighty Carthaginians of North Africa. Now, this kind of led, when you have two city states, kind of like, Athens and Sparta was way back a couple of chapters ago. Now you have Rome and Carthage. They're going to butt heads. Circle D. We're going to talk about 3 of the battles of the Punic Wars. You need to know all 3. You need to know what happened. You need to know the outcome. Circle D, Circle E. The First Punic War began as a dispute between Rome and Carthage over the island of Sicily. Now, if you go back to this slide right here, Sicily, if you look at the picture below, is kind of in the middle. We want that middle ground. If you're Carthage, you do not want the Romans to have Sicily and just be a stone's throw from North Africa, your homeland of Carthage. But the Romans did not want the Carthaginians to have Sicily, because now you have the Carthaginians, if they control Sicily, at the doorstep of the Italian peninsula and into Rome. So this was all about the mid ground, the midway. We need that middle ground so the other person, the other city-state, does not have the tactical advantage. So Carthage and Rome, they go to war over the island of Sicily. It's a slugfest, not a quick war, lasts about 20 years, and then the mighty Romans, they win. And now the Romans have a tactical advantage. They have the middle ground. They control the island of Sicily, and now there's just a stone's throw away from North Africa and Carthage. Carthage does not like this. They do not like the fact that Rome is so close to their city-state of Carthage. So the Second Punic War began after Carthage thinks, okay, we got to come up with another way. So I'm going to go back to this picture. So now Carthage goes across, look at the picture, goes across North Africa and into Spain. And now you're on the Roman, the Italian peninsula side of the Mediterranean Sea. So Carthage is advancing on that side of the Mediterranean Sea. So Carthage expands into Spain. And Rome does not want to start necessarily another war with Carthage. So they supply weapons, they supply animals, they supply everything to the people of Spain. Hey, y'all need to rebel. You need to kick the Carthaginians out. Not necessarily because the Romans liked the Spaniards. It's because they did not want Carthage expanding on this side of the Mediterranean Sea area. Now, during the Second Punic War, there was a great Carthaginian general named Hannibal. And he was a great Carthaginian general who fought in the Second Punic War. And at the Battle of Cannae, Hannibal's forces overpowered the Romans. He is victorious. And now the Romans are kind of back on their heels a little bit. And when you get just a little taste of power, you want more. And Hannibal definitely wanted more. He wanted to take his Carthaginian army and march in to the Italian peninsula and basically take Rome. Well, they couldn't go through Sicily, so they went around and they tried to do a surprise attack. Look at the picture below. They went across the Alps, and the Alps are the second highest mountain range in all the world, only second to I'm losing my train of thought here. The Himalayas, of course, and Mount Everest and that area of Nepal. So Hannibal takes his forces and goes over the second highest mountain range. And you can see it's not an easy trail. You've got elephants. He marched in with elephants from Africa. They fall off the mountains. People fall off the mountains. They get cold because these are snow covered mountains, and a lot of people get disease and die. When he marches in to the Italian peninsula, there's a Roman general named Scipio. He's waiting on him. And Scipio leads his forces to defeat the Carthaginians at the Battle of Zama, pretty much ending the Second Punic War. Rome has now won both Punic Wars. But Rome's not finished. They're going to use Sicily, the island, to their advantage. And they're going to use Sicily to go into North Africa and in the third and final Punic War, pretty much destroy, level the city of Carthage to the degree that they take salt and kind of poison the land to where they can't even grow farmland or food anymore in that area. Now, Rome goes on and takes over all of Greece, all of Macedonia, all of Gaul, which is modern day France, and parts of Africa and Asia. They pretty much, if you look at the picture here, they control all of the Mediterranean Sea area. The Roman Republic, if you would, it expands so quick and so big that it becomes really the largest controlled area of land that the world has ever seen. The Romans were deeply influenced by the Greeks and adopted much of the Greek culture, which we talked about in some earlier chapters. Crassus strikes the Republic. As Rome's territory grew, so did its problems. You get more land, you get more people, you have different cultures, ethnic backgrounds, all of these things. Tensions between the rich patricians and the poor plebeians, they are growing by leaps and bounds. Some leaders try to keep the poor citizens happy, but their plans were not popular with the wealthy, as you can imagine, because the wealthy wanted total domination and control over everybody because they did have control over the government, as discussed in section 2. Politicians who tried to make change, they went against the Romans, and they were pretty much killed. Think about this. If somebody came in and changed your lives, people generally do not like change. For example, Circle D, Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus were two wealthy brothers who tried to reform the government. They tried to do good things. They were killed, though, because they tried to change the way of people's lives, and people did not like that. Army General Gaius Marius encouraged the poor and unemployed to join the army. What? Before, only people who had owned property had been allowed in the army. This is going to expand the military by leaps and bounds, which they probably needed with this extra territory, but it's also going to give the poor plebeians kind of a confidence that they never had before, because now they've joined the army and now they're getting paid to be in the army. As a result, the army became more loyal to Marius than to the Roman government. And then you have a situation to where you have a military that is answering to one person and not the government itself. And you have the development of what some people would say a dictator. Another man named Lucius Cornelius Sulla raised his own army. And now, instead of like Carthage and Rome, you have Marius and Sulla, and they're going to fight it out. Sulla drove Marius out of Rome and declared himself dictator, and spent 3 years reforming the government before he resigned from office. Now, he probably resigned because he was reforming the government, and that means change, and he knew that he was probably going to be killed if he continued that route. Soon after this, Spartacus, a slave and former gladiator, led an uprising of thousands of slaves against the Roman Republic. Now, Spartacus was eventually defeated and killed, but these conflicts weakened Rome just a little bit. Now, if we did have an essay question on this test for chapter 10, I would probably briefly describe each of the Punic Wars, first, second, and third, what happened, who won, what was the outcome, and did Rome gain any territory in these wars? Went over all this today. Describe the three crises that Rome faced following the Punic Wars. You had the slave rebellion, you had Marius and Sulla, you had the rich versus the poor. Those are some of the crises that you need to look at. All right, that will conclude chapter 10. Hopefully you learned a little something, and hopefully I take credit for that. As always, stay humble and stay blessed, and I'll see you next time.